know you better as this quarter. It's going to be a very unusual quarter. We're going to do remote learning, but we've worked hard over the summer to make this course adapted for this online format. We have a lot of activities and discussions planned for you. So I'm very much looking forward to an exciting quarter. So in case you guys have noticed our background, this is the background of our introduction to the class. And this is an ambiguous image because you might see multiple things in this picture. So maybe you guys could just, write in the chat how many faces you see in this picture. So you guys are really good. So there are 5 faces in this picture. There is a big old woman's face here. There is a smaller woman's face here. There's an old man's face here. The guy on the guitar face, and of course there's this little woman here. You might have also noticed the vase in the middle. So this is in our biggest image, and we're going to talk about it a little more in today's class. So for those of you who don't know me, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a neuroscientist here at Stanford, and my research uses multimodal imaging and behavioral methods and computational methods to understand how human vision works. And the research in my lab has made several important discoveries about how the structure, function, and computation in the human brain help you do visual recognition. Another line of research in my lab is looking at how your experience, especially your childhood experience, affects your brain and consequently your perception. And a recent study that we published several years ago has shown that if you spend a lot of time as a kid playing Pokemon on your Pokedex, you will generate new representation of Pokemon in your brain. However, if you're like me and you've never played with Pokemon, you don't have these representations. And the reason I'm telling you about this is because I'm going to use my intuition and my knowledge about neuroscience and infuse them in the class. And I hope that will help you get more and more enthusiastic about the topics that we're going to discuss. In addition to myself, we have a very strong team of instructors that you're going to see and meet throughout the quarter. And these are all graduate students in the psychology department, and our head TA is Don Finzi. And so I'm just going to let them introduce themselves in turn. Don?
Hi guys, I'm Dawn. I'm a 4th year PhD student in the department, and I work with Colony. And I'll be head TA for the class, so if you have any questions, please just email me.
I'm the 2nd TA for this class. I'm Nathan. I'm a 4th year PhD student as well.
I'm a 3rd TA for this class, and I'm a 2nd year graduate student working with Colony. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, I'm a 6th year PhD student. I worked with Anthony, and nice to see you all.
Hey guys, I'm Josh. I'm a 3rd year graduate student in the psychology department working with Justin Gardner. Nice to meet all of you guys.
So you're going to meet all of your TAs this quarter. You're going to have discussion with them, and we're very happy to have them in the teaching team. So what are we going to do this quarter? What we're going to do this quarter is think about many different perceptual phenomena and how they're implemented in the brain. We're going to ask some basic questions such as how do we perceive color? How do we perceive sounds? How does our brain process auditory and visual stimuli? Do we need to invoke cognitive processing such as attention to perceive stimuli? And more importantly, how does our experience shape our perceptions? I'm also a big believer in learning through doing, so we're going to have a lot of fun with illusions this quarter, and part of the fun would be looking at illusion and thinking about them, but also about you guys actually implementing illusions, and I'm going to talk about this in a couple of minutes. We're going to use the textbooks this quarter, and we're going to use a flipped class format, which means that we are going to ask you to read before each week the material, so you have a basic understanding about the concepts that we're going to spend time thinking about together in our synchronous meetings. The textbook that we are going to use is Sensation and Perception by Jeremy and Wolf, and it's the 5th edition. If you guys have a prior editions like the 4th editions, it's probably also okay, though the page numbers might not match the numbers that we're going to publish in our reading. So we would prefer if you have the 5th edition if possible. You can get this textbook through the bookstore. You can also get a digital version through RedShelf, and we've posted the link. There are also 3 copies on reserve at Stanford Library, but I don't know if anybody here is on campus or not, but if you are on campus, you will have access to this book. We also know that this is challenging times and a lot of people are studying remotely. So the first 2 weeks of readings are also embedded in our problem sets. So we have given you 2 weeks to get organized in getting the textbooks. So everything that we're going to do is going to be on Canvas. So let me share with you the Canvas link for our class in the chat. If you haven't yet visited it, I'm putting it in the chat. You can just double click on it, and it would be nice if you can look at it as I will go through it. Okay, so this is our Canvas class site, and basically everything is going to go through Canvas. Let me put it on the student view. So the most important thing that I'd like you to do to get started is going through this and reading our syllabus, because the syllabus will give you a good indication of what's in store. It also has our information, and it has our office hours. All of us are going to have office hours throughout the quarter. My office hours are going to be immediately after class on Tuesday, so if you want to hang out after class and ask me questions, I'm going to be there. And we've tried to spread the office hours throughout the week. And basically, we're going to have open door office hours, so all you'll need to do is just click the Zoom link, and you'll find us. And we'll be happy to be there and help you and discuss with you any questions that you might have. The course is organized by modules, and the modules are accessible through the syllabus. And basically, this is how the course is going to be like. So the first 2 weeks are going to be general introduction to perception, how we measure perception behaviorally. Then that's modules 1 and 2. Then we have modules 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8 that we're going to really look deeply into different aspects of visual perception, asking questions about what is the function of the eye, how does the information flow from the eye to the brain, how come we have 2 eyes and how it might help us with 3D vision, as well as how we perceive very specific aspects of the visual scene, such as motion, color, and faces and objects. After we're going to be done with the vision modules, we're going to shift gears and talk about audition, and we're going to talk about things like pitch and loudness perception, how we localize sounds, as well as how we perceive more complex sounds such as speech. And the last 2 weeks are going to be kind of zooming out. So the last instruction week would be how does attention and experience affect perception? And the last week is going to be devoted to our project presentations, which I'm going to explain about in a couple of minutes. The important thing about the modules that you can access them from the syllabus, or you can access them from the modules tab on the left, and they will have all the materials for each module. So for example, for today's module, which is introduction, each module will have a TA. So today Pam is a TA who's moderating this module. And we have, for each module, kind of a high-level overview of our goal and schedule. So if you click on this document, for example, you'll see what's in store for you for the first module this week. So for example, this week we're going to have 2 synchronous classes, today and on Thursday. For each module, we're going to have a reading. Typically, the readings are going to be on Mondays, but obviously this week we couldn't do it on Monday, so we have a little bit of reading for you to do already tomorrow, and that's just basically to get you ready for Thursday's class. Each module will have a problem set. The problem sets are going to be due on Saturday, so you guys are going to be busy already this week. And sometimes we'll have special instructions. For example, this week we would like you to buy some materials that you'll need for the class. So this document is going to be there for every module and just going to give you a high-level overview of what we're going to learn this week and what's in store in terms of the schedule. You'll have also your assignments for this week. So you'll have the reading assignment and the problem sets. The reading assignment are going to be usually just a few questions just to recap the important concept of each week. And we don't really need long answer. It's enough if you just write a sentence of 2 just to make sure that you've figured out the important concept. It's also an opportunity for you to write something that you find that was difficult to understand or you'd like more information, so you could put that also in your reading responses. And here you're also going to find the problem set, and you can click on it, and here it's going to be a PDF, and we'll give you the assignment. I guess you can't see this here because you can't see my PDF. And let me just share with you the assignment for this week. So this is going to be the first problem set, and you're going to have the questions here, and you're just going to respond to them. One of the things that we're going to implement this year is that we're going to have a discussion forum for the problem sets, and we're going to use CampusWire for this. So as you're doing the problem sets, if you have questions, please post them on CampusWire, and the TA who's going to be in charge of the module this week is going to be Pam. She's going to moderate this discussion and answer questions. And we have learned from prior years that this is a more effective way to answer your questions than through emails. Another thing that we're going to have on Canvas is this live agenda. So I want you to introduce to you guys this live agenda document. And I will really hope that you can all click on this document and have it available for you at the beginning of each class. And the reason that we've generated this live agenda document is because throughout the classes, you'll see we have embedded activities. So we're going to go in and out of the Zoom. We also understand that the Wi-Fi access could be spotty at times, and we might have Wi-Fi hiccups. And since we're all very distributed, we want to make sure that everybody, even if they get lost in the internet or don't have some hiccups, they will be able to return to the class and know what's going on at each interval. So you can see that this is a plan for today. We're going to start the general introduction on Zoom. Then we're going to have an activity that I'm going to explain to you. After the activity, we're going to return to the class Zoom. So basically, the times are always going to be written in Pacific Standard Time. So they're anchored to Stanford. So if you're in another place, you have to kind of adjust for your location. And then we're going to have some breakout room discussion, and then we're going to return to the Zoom class. So I greatly recommend that you have this document for you available for you at the beginning of each class so you can follow us in case things get disrupted in terms of your internet. Okay. So this is our Canvas, and please read the syllabus and get acquainted with the class. We talked about the live agenda. Okay, so how we're going to do the instructions this year, this is going to be a very unusual year because everything is going to be remote. There are also no exams this year, so everything is going to be much more done throughout the quarter with different kinds of activities. So the first component of our class is going to be the reading. So each module you're going to have some reading, and you're just going to answer some questions for us, and that's about 20% of your participation. We're going to have a lot of activities in the online synchronous classes, and that's going to be about 10% of your participation. We're going to have weekly problem sets. So they're actually going to be 8 problem sets throughout the quarter. Each of them is going to be 5 points, and that's going to account for 40% of the course participation. And finally, we're going to have 2 projects. These projects are going to be really fun, and they're going to account for 30% of your participation. Okay, so what are the projects? So as I told you, I'm a great believer of learning from doing things. And I also think that if learning is fun, it's much more memorable. So we're going to have 2 projects throughout the quarter in which you're going to learn from illusions. And the way that you're going to learn from illusions is actually by implementing illusions and using that as a mechanism to explain some phenomena about perception. So the first project is going to be a project that's called the Random Dot Stereogram Project. And in this, you're going to generate a picture that is made out of red and blue dots. And we're going to use this to understand how having 2 eyes enables you to see in 3D. In order for us to be able to do this and see 3D, this is actually a random dot stereogram that was generated by a student in the perception class in the previous year. You can see, obviously, right now the 3D structure of this picture, and the only way you can see that if you have these red-green or red-blue stereo glasses. If you're on campus, I would have distributed these glasses to you, but because we're in this remote setup, I'm going to ask you guys to purchase red cyan stereo glasses. These glasses are made from cardboard. They're pretty cheap. For example, you can get 12 cardboard glasses. They are called red cyan 3D glasses on Amazon for $6.99. So you can also buy just a single pair. It varies between 10 cents and $2. These are the prices that I've seen. But if you guys can, self-organize and maybe a bunch of you can buy together, that's probably going to be the cheapest. We also understand that different people might have different kind of issues with purchasing 3D cardboard glasses. We're not sure if these glasses are accessible across the world. So if you have any problem purchasing these 3 glasses for any reason, please email our head TA, Dawn. This is her email here. And we want you to get organized this week. Dawn, you have a comment? You just want to say this is Dawn? Okay, good. So we want you to get organized already this week, and so we are ready for the project in October. The second project is going to be what I call the Illusion Workshop. It's a project that I've been running for several years, and it's usually the highlight of the course. And basically, this is an opportunity for you to pick something that really interests you about perception. I'm going to talk mostly about auditory and visual perception, but it doesn't have to be restricted to these senses. It could be with any sense, and lets you dig deeper into that topic. And the way that you're going to deeper into that topic is by implementing an illusion. You don't really have to invent an illusion. It's just take an illusion that's there and actually implement it and use that as a way to understand how some aspect of perception works. And what we're going to do is that we're going to have you guys present your illusions to us as well as to the class during the last week of the quarter. So that's the week number 10 of the quarter. And you're going to be presenting your perceptual illusions. And this has been really a fun thing because people have in the past have really leveraged their creativity and fun and done a lot of really interesting projects. And so this is an example from a student from the last time I taught the class in 2018. His name is Riley Wilson, and he was really curious about motion perception. And he did this illusion to show how you can turn a still picture into a moving picture. So what he did is he generated this image that's made out of kind of these lines. And then he had this kind of grating on the side that has black and white stripes. And now you can see what happens when he puts this grating and he slowly slides it over the picture. So you can see this is really, really very cool because as he's sliding the bars from left to right, suddenly you have this Ferris wheel rotating clockwise. And this is basically a way to illustrate how you can generate motions from a sequence of stills. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a minute and maybe give you an opportunity to ask questions. And perhaps a way to ask questions would be that you put the questions into the chat and Pam will moderate the chat for us.
No questions so far?
I'll still wait maybe a minute or so.
Okay, so someone asked, should we wait until after the lectures to start on the problem sets?
I think it varies. I think you could get started in looking. Some of the material will evolve over the week, and some of the material is already in the reading. So I would suggest taking a look at the problem set, because that would kind of give you focus on what to really pay attention during the lectures. But some of it you might be better doing it after you finish the lecture on Thursday. So that's kind of my answer.
Okay, and another question is, when should we start working on projects?
Okay, the projects, we're going to give you information of the projects as they evolve. The first project is going to be in the middle of October, and you shouldn't start working on it till I've explained to you what is stereo vision, and that's going to happen on the week of October 6th, so don't start yet. For the final project for the illusion workshop, we are also going to give you a little bit of activities throughout the quarter, so you're going to submit a proposal in the end of October, October 24th, I believe. We're going to check that your project makes sense, because we want you to do something that's feasible in the time of the class and something that's not just a copy of something in the book. So we're going to vet that. And after you get this, probably in the first end of October, you could start working on your second project.
And also related to the project, someone asked for project 2, is it recommended that we build the illusion or simply demonstrate it?
It varies a lot. Some of the, when you say demonstrate it, I think I mean implement it. So if an illusion, it would be a picture, you could draw it. Sometimes people have done like 3D sculptures, so you could build it. Sometimes people code illusions. Sometimes people generate videos. We're very flexible in the medium, and that's partially why it's so much fun for us, because people have really brought in a lot from their own creativity and the mediums that they like to work. So we're open to suggestions, and we'll give you more instructions when we'll talk about the illusion proposal.
And the last question is there a reason that we cannot see all the modules right now?
Oh,
probably it's on Canvas.
Yeah. Not all the material is uploaded yet on Canvas, that's why. So we've uploaded the first 2 weeks, and we're going to open it shortly, but not everything is ready yet to be visible to you guys.
And that's all the questions.
Okay, very good. I'm glad that you're using the chat, and we're going to use it throughout. So that's just, if you have further questions, also you could put them in. We'll have at the very end of today's meeting, we'll have another Q&A. So if there are anything that comes to mind, you could continue putting things on the chat. Okay, so I actually do want to start with perception. And here's what we're going to do. Let me just go to, okay. Sorry, I'm jumping around. So to get you guys curious about perception, what we're going to do right now is an online activity. So I've prepared for you a Google form. I'm going to put this link in the chat. And this will give you access to a Google form that has 3 sections that I'd like you guys to fill in. And each section asks you several different questions about how you perceive visual stimuli. And just go and answer all the questions by order. And at the end, when you finish, just submit it. And we're going to ask for your student IDs. This is how we're going to record your participation. So please make sure you put your student ID in before you press submit. And right now it's 5 o'clock. So we're going to give you 5 minutes to do this activity. So please be back on the class Zoom by 5 in 5 minutes. I see that most of you have finished this, and if you haven't finished, if you could wrap up shortly, that would be great, because I would like to review some of the results with you together. Okay. So what we're going to do right now, today, we're going to review the first 3 questions that you answered. And on Thursday, we're going to look into the other questions. And the purpose is this, just to give you a little bit of a gist about how you perceive different kinds of visual stimuli. So let's just see how you guys are answering and if there is some kind of consensus between you guys. So the first question we ask you is about lengths. So how good are you at estimating lengths without using a ruler indicates a relationship between the lines. And you had various answers, and just let's look at the responses. And this gives you the statistics of the response of the class. So there seems to be a large consensus among the participants here today that about 96% of the people here in the class perceives the longer line to be twice as long as the shorter line, and a small proportion, about 3.3%, perceives that the line is only 1.25 longer. So one of the things that we're going to do in the breakout room is see how much this percept is close to the actual difference in the line. So we're going to invoke a ruler and see how good you are with perceiving lengths. The second question showed you, the second question showed you is this picture with 2 tables and asked you to report which of the tables appears longer, the one on the left or the one on the right. And here you can see again that there seems to be a pretty strong consensus in the class that most people perceive the table on the left to be longer than the table on the right. So about 3.6% have an opposite perception. And the last question was about this picture. I just asked you, here's a picture. What do you see in this picture, a duck or a rabbit? And here you can see that their responses are a little bit more varied across people. So that 3/4 of the people or so perceive this to be a duck, but about 27% of the people perceive this to be the rabbit. And then the question is why there is much more variability in this question than the other questions. So what I'd like to do with you guys right now is get you to start thinking and discussing the results of these experiments. So if I go to the live agenda, I think we've budgeted a half an hour for this discussion. So I'm gonna open the breakout rooms, and you have been assigned to the breakout rooms. This is gonna be, you're gonna get an invitation to the breakout room, and please join the breakout room that you've assigned to start the discussion. And we're gonna reconvene in 30 minutes, which would be at 5:40 back in the main room. Some of you are going to stay with me in this main room, so if you don't get an invitation, that means that you belong to this breakout room. So are you guys ready? Okay, let's go. Sorry, the sheets that I had for the breakout room is not actually divided you as I planned, so I'm sending you guys messages as I go.
Hi, Kelly. Are you assigning people to breakout rooms right now?
Yes.
Okay.
For some reason, the CSV file is not working. I have no
I
idea
see.
why not. So right now, I'm assigning it manually, so just bear with me. So it's going to be a little bit random today, but we're going to figure this out by the next time. Sorry, guys, it's a little bit more messed up than I anticipated. So just bear with me. Okay. Cool. Hi there. Sorry for the delay. I'm not sure why it didn't work. We're going to have a discussion. So if you guys can turn your videos, if possible, that would be great because I would like you guys to introduce yourselves. And we're going to do the activity that we've planned. So hello. Before we get started, it would be really nice if you guys could introduce yourself. And what I'd like you guys to do is just say your name, what you're studying, and maybe a fun fact about yourself. I don't know if everybody sees people by the same order than I do. I'll try to kind of say your name and you will respond. I might mispronounce your name, so I'm really greatly apologizing beforehand if I'm going to massacre your name. So maybe I'm going to start with you, Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a freshman, so I haven't chosen my major yet, but I'm probably going to major in psychology. And a fun fact about me is my last name is technically a typo because my dad's last name was written wrong in his college registers, and he just kept it that way. Oh, and I use she, her pronouns.
Keenan, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Keenan. I'm a junior. Use he, him pronouns, and a fun fact is that I'm really terrified of heights, so I went skydiving this past year, and yeah.
Alice Vieira.
Hi, I'm Alice. I'm a senior and I'm majoring in English. And I guess a fun fact about me is I'm a really good liar. Yeah.
This might be mispronouncing. Riel Woods.
Yeah, my name is Real. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a junior. I'm studying psychology. And a fun fact, I taught myself guitar during the quarantine.
Cool. Carolyn Wang.
I'm Caroline, she, her pronouns. I'm a sophomore and I'm studying computer science. Fun fact, I'm on the fencing team, but not anymore, I guess.
It's too bad. Claudia.
Hi, I'm Claudia. I'm currently a junior. I just switched over to CS from political science. And my fun fact is that I speak fluent Polish.
Cool. Mackenzie.
Hi, my name's Mackenzie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior. I'm majoring in psychology. And a fun fact about me is that my dad is Canadian, so I'm applying to get my dual citizenship.
Maya Rooklyn.
Hey, I'm Maya, she, her pronouns. I'm a junior majoring in psychology. My fun fact is I have a really fast typing speed.
Cool. Ruth.
Hi, I'm Ruth. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also studying psychology, and fun fact is I have a lot of succulents at home that are my mom's.
Michela.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm a senior, she, her pronouns. I'm also majoring in psychology, and my fun fact is that my last name is also a typo. I've never met anyone else whom that's the case, so hey. But it was supposed to be Robinson, and then when my family came to America a few generations ago, whoever was writing this stuff out had really bad handwriting, and so they missed the N in the middle, and now here I am.
Denise.
Hi, my name's Denise. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior studying psychology. And my fun fact is that I can sing my ABCs backwards.
Cool. Yesenia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Yesenia. I am a senior studying product design and data science. And my fun fact is that I made this bed/workspace.
David?
Yeah, I'm David, he, him. I'm a senior in CS. And my fun fact is that, I don't know. Oh, I'm on the club tennis team.
Amarissa?
Hi, I'm Amarissa. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a sophomore studying human biology. And my fun fact is I'm a wakeboarder.
Leah?
Hi, I'm Leah. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior studying psych. And my fun fact is over the summer I started a jewelry business. So if anybody likes jewelry, please hit me up.
I might be mispronouncing your name, so I apologize. Cheyenne?
Hi, my name's Shane. It's okay. It happens a lot. I'm a senior. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm studying STS. And I guess the fun fact is I've never tried raspberries.
Nolan?
I'm Nolan. I'm a sophomore. He, him pronouns. I'm probably going to study home bio. And fun fact is I don't like chocolate.
Melly?
Hi, my name is Malay. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a sophomore or junior studying psychology. And a fun fact is that I used to play racquetball.
Ozzy?
Hi, my name is Ozzy. I'm a senior studying computer science. My fun fact is that I grew up in Morocco.
Okay, I also apologize because I'm probably going to massacre your name. Delarante?
Hey, I'm Delronte. I'm a senior studying computer science, pronouns he, him. A fun fact about me, I interned at Microsoft a few times and had a great time at all the boat parties.
Cool. Alyssa?
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior psych major. And I guess my fun fact is I really enjoy to bake.
John?
Hello, my name is John. I'm a senior studying symbolic systems. I use he, him pronouns, and my fun fact would be that I spent quarantine building a terrace garden on the side of a hill in my backyard.
Taylor?
Hi, I'm Taylor. Sorry my camera isn't working right now, but I'm a 5th year studying psychology, and a fun fact is that I was studying abroad in Italy when COVID hit.
Wow. Is there anybody I have missed by mistake? Okay, seems like we've covered everybody. So it's very nice to meet you. We have a lot of psych students, but there's a lot of diversity, and I'm very excited about it. It makes the class more interesting when people bring their different experiences and backgrounds. So this is supposed to be our consistent group, but my file didn't work, so we might get mixed up again next time. But we're going to try to have these consistent discussion groups throughout the quarter so we can build a little bit of a community, even though everybody is displaced in a different part of the universe right now. So what I would like to do is start a discussion with you about our activity. So let me just share my slide in a second. Okay. Okay, so this is our discussion. We did the introductions. So let's get back to the first question. How good are we at perceiving length? So I have a message here, sorry. Okay, so let's see. A lot of people said that this line is twice as long as the other line. So let's see if that's actually the right answer. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a line and measure it. And let's see if you guys were right. So I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to make it more visible. Okay, this line, you can see its length is 2 inches and 66. And I'm going to now copy this line over, and I'm going to half it because you guys thought that the answer was half as long. And let's see if this matches the length of the shorter line, and it does. So this is kind of nice, right? Because most of the class was pretty accurate at estimating the length of this line. So the question I have for you is, what insight might we have from the fact that many people perceive lengths accurately, and we have, as a group, converge to the right answer? So maybe one of you or more of you are brave and would like to answer this question. Keenan, go for it.
Maybe it's like an important skill to have, so maybe that's why a lot of people got it.
Cool. Claudia.
For me, it was kind of easier to picture it mentally because I'm a visual learner, and I think visual learning is pretty common, so that might be why.
So you think your experience is helping you here?
Yeah, so like in my head, I kind of like moved the line up and then kind of imagined it comparing it to the other one visually.
Anybody else has anything to add? Michelle?
So like I found that task easier than like the one with the tables, which, so like I think the lines could be tables of the same length, but because they are currently just lines with no interacting stimuli to like mess with your brains, I feel like that's why it was easier, because we see them presented in a more like objective manner.
Cool. And I see a lot of you are nodding, so I think Michelle's answer is resonating with you. And you guys all three of you, I'm really happy that you guys are brave and answer immediately, because I really want to get to know all of you. I'd like everybody to get engaged in the quarter in answering these questions, so I would really want your active participation. And your answers are on spot. And basically, the purpose of this demonstration, and the reason I chose it, is to illustrate that some aspects of our perceptions are very accurate, and estimating lines or lengths might be something that would be actually really useful in the real world, because suppose you want to pick up stuff. If you misestimate the size of it, you might not be able to interact with this accurately. So there's some aspects of our perception that reflect very accurately the state of the world, and length is one of these aspects. This is kind of why I use this kind of demonstration. Okay, let's go to the second question. The second question asks you about the length of the tables, and people overall said that the left table looks longer than the right table. However, this is an illusion, and in fact, you guys are all wrong. So, you want me to show you this? Okay, I'm going to show you this. So, this is a parallelogram, and you can see that I made this parallelogram perfectly to match the first table. Now, I'm going to do magic tricks. You want to see? Are you ready? Ta-dum, 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 drum roll. Huh. It's exactly the same size. No way, right? You want drum roll again? I'm going to magic it again and make it look longer. It's exactly the same parallelogram. Okay. So I'm a tricky person. I chose this on purpose. And my question for you is the following. One, clearly you guys are all wrong. So how could you perceive the length of the two lines perfectly and the length of the table just all wrong? So that's my first question to you. And the second question I have for you is, if you're so bad at estimating the length of these tables, how come you're so good at answering the length of the lines?
I'll try to give a guess. I think, is it okay if I start with number 2?
Sure.
Just based on the direction of the tables, they're in different directions, whereas the lines were kind of like on the same plane, I would say. So it was easier to try to figure out whether or not the lines were the same size as opposed to the tables.
So basically, by turning them around, I made the task more difficult.
Yes.
I think also,
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I was just going to say, like I wanted to pick an answer they're the same length, but I also wanted to pick that because I feel like I recognize this as an illusion and not because they look the same length. And I agree that like for me initially the table on the left going longwise or like facing front to back as opposed to side just made it seem longer.
Okay.
And then kind of like going off of that, I think that the addition of like the lines to make it look like a table probably had a lot to do with it, because it kind of makes us view like depth and stuff like that, and just like that makes it almost more of an illusion, because it's a 2D frame, but we're trying to understand it as three-dimensional.
I know that like there's an art trick where people kind of even though a plane is like is parallel, like they have like a convergent spot in the middle, and the two lines cross to create like a depth illusion, and it kind of seems like that on this one too.
This is called perspective.
Oh, perspective. I forgot the word.
It is a word from art. You're right. You guys are good. Anybody want to add any other additional thoughts? So I would say that all of the intuitions that you have are all right. So you guys really gave nice complementary answers that are on spot. And the reason that I chose this picture is because it's an illusion that shows that perception is an interpretation of the world. So why is this an interpretation? This is clearly a 2D line drawing on your computer screens. It's clearly two-dimensional. But as I think it was Mackenzie who said that, we are interpreting it as a 3D shape. So, and the reason is that the world all the time is 3D. So when we have an opportunity to interpret something as 3D, we do. And because we interpret it as a 3D, we take into account the depths, we take into account the orientation, as you guys said, and we take into account the information about the context, like the legs. And if in a situation that this looks like it's going deeper into the room, right, than this one, and if the tabletops are the same size, we factor this in, and this is why this table appears longer. So the purpose that I chose this illusion is to illustrate that perception is not a copy of the pictures, but actually an interpretation of the pictures. But I do have one more question for you. I know for me that even when I've seen this illusion thousands of times, trust me, I've taught this class for many years, and I always chose this illusion because it's very effective. Even though I know the answer is that the tabletops are exactly the same size, I cannot turn off this illusion. The table on the left still looks longer to me. And I believe Leah kind of highlighted this point. Like, she knows the trick question, but it still looks longer. So my question to you is, why don't the tables appear to be the same length, even though I've told you the right answer?
So it might be that, like, for things like visual perception, which, like, evolutionarily are very, very old, it's harder to, like, I guess, go against the way to perceive something. So, like, even if you are aware or, like, cognitively aware that it's wrong, the way that your visual processing is wired, I guess it doesn't override that.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't see who was talking. Could you just introduce yourself, please?
Oh, yeah, that was Leah again. Hello.
Okay, cool. So you said it's hardwired. Claudia also had her hand up.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a very similar comment. But I'm also thinking that it's either perhaps hardwired or it becomes hardwired through habit, because or through experience. So it can be both pre-programmed and something that we may internalize throughout our lives. So not sure which one it is.
So you guys have great intuition, and the idea is that there is a prior in our visual system. I'm going to call it a prior. I don't know if it's hardwired or not, but means that we have a prior and all of us shares a common prior, and we cannot do this prior. And when we're going to resume like the main class, we're going to talk a little bit more about this prior and what we mean. But the prior is so strong we cannot override it, and this is why we still see this illusion even though it's wrong. Okay, so now let's go to the third question, and I'm going to ask you the question, and it would help me if you like raise your hand in the participant menu, so then this way I can see who wants to talk, because I can't see when I'm sharing the screen all of you at once. So I just want to make sure that also gives opportunity to talk for people who haven't been active yet, because I do want to have everybody engaged. So this is another trick question. It's a trick question because it's called an ambiguous image. And the reason it's called an ambiguous image is because that it has multiple interpretation. So the question I have is, how could be that given exactly the same image, so this is one image, everybody saw exactly the same image, some of the students have seen one thing, which is a duck, and the other students have seen something completely different, which is a rabbit. So the stimulus hasn't changed, but people's percepts are vastly different. So maybe somebody has an insight and can tell me why they think this is happening. Okay, so I see Maya, and I see, Caroline also raising her hand, and Ruth. So I'm going to start with Caroline, then I'm going to give it Maya, and then Ruth. So we're going to go in that order. So Caroline.
I feel like this one might be more based on like people's experiences. Like if you're in an area with a lot of ducks, you might immediately, like as opposed to rabbits, you might think immediately that this is a duck. And if you're like a rabbit person, you might see this as a rabbit.
Okay, so you think it's your experience. Maya, what was your response?
Yeah, I also wondered if experience factored in, but another thing I noticed was like, for me at least, it depends on which part of the image I focus on. Like if I focus more on the eye and like the rabbit nose, that's what I see. But if I focus on the bill, then I see the duck. So I don't know if it depends on what part of the image you're looking at.
Okay, so you think it depends on where you're looking at. Ruth?
Yeah, like similar to that, I kind of thought about how, like, for example, like where you start looking, and like in general, most people chose like the duck. And to me, I think like if you look from left to right, which is like how most people read in English at least, like you will see a duck more so than a rabbit. So maybe that like maybe just like also like experience can affect the way you perceive things. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just do a little short experiment. So I think you guys are all, again, having good intuition, and then you suggested that where you look can influence what you see. So I'm going to put, everybody sees my cursor? So the cursor is on the eye. Look on the, you know what, I'm going to put the cursor here. So the cursor on the right side. If you see a rabbit, raise your hand virtually on the participant screen. Okay, so I see a lot of people raising their hands. Okay, now I'm going to move the cursor here to this left side. And now raise your hand if you see a duck. So a lot of people are raising their hands now that they're seeing a duck. So it does look like where you're looking at and not only your experience affects this, because I could just change your perception just by making you look at different parts of the image. Which makes me ask the last question, if if you could just change your percept just by where you're looking at, does that mean that just by interacting with the world, just making eye movements, you can control what you see? And in fact, all what you see is a figment of your imagination.
Okay. I'm going to say I don't think so, because still from that first image, with the tables, the second one, we learned that there are some things that we can't really affect. So I think that there are some things that regardless of how we interact with them, our eyes are just going to force us, or our minds and our eyes are going to force us to see some things. But perhaps it is all a figment of our imagination. I think so, because everything is kind of filtered through our perceptive faculties.
Okay, so I really like your answer, especially because you said it's all a figment of your imaginations. And I let you ruminate of this as I'm going to draw back the entire rest of the class back to our discussion. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm going to leave you ruminating on the thought. And let me see if I can break out. The breakout rooms, they'll have... Okay, I think everybody's back now. Hi guys in the breakout rooms, could you just give me a read? Did you guys manage to do the activities or not? Where are you guys at in terms of the activities?
Yeah, we just finished going through all the discussion points.
Okay, good.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah, us too.
Okay. Is Don there and Nathan?
Yeah, we're finished.
Okay, you get it. I'm sorry. The breakout room is a little bit more messy than I anticipated. It was supposed to be all automatic. It didn't work, but at least everybody got the discussion, so that's good. And I'm hoping that it'll be a little bit more seamless on Thursday. But I'm glad that everybody managed to do these discussions. Yes, I see that some people have questions. Ruth, do you have a question? Nope. You're just moving your hand. Okay. If you have questions, I think because we're a really large group, I would really appreciate if you put the questions in the chat. And at the end, we're going to go back to your questions. So if you still have lingering questions, please start putting them in the chat. Okay, so let me go back to my slides. Nope, wrong one. Okay, so I'm just going to recap what we all discussed in the breakout rooms and just to give you a high-level idea of why we did these illusions. So the purpose of the first illusion was to show that some aspects of perception really very accurately reflect the state of the world. And in the case of the first illusion, I asked you to judge lengths, and it's pretty typical that most people will converge on the right answer, which is that the long line is twice as long as a short line. And in general, having accurate percepts is useful because it allows us to successfully interact with the world. For example, not fall from stairs or catch a fastball or hear very soft sounds. The second demonstration was to demonstrate that sometimes our percepts can be deceiving and we're actually can get a lot of things pretty wrong. So this is an illusion that was generated here at Stanford many years ago by a psychologist in the name of Roger Shepard. He's retired now from our department, and he used that to illustrate that perceptions might be misleading as they can sometimes fail us. And it is also interesting, as you saw, that even when you know that the tabletops are actually identical, you cannot turn this illusion off. The table on the left still appears to be longer than the table on the right, even though we've showed you the answers that the tabletops are identical. This phenomena is called unconscious inference because you're making inference in the scene and you're making it unconsciously, and you cannot have your consciousness override your percept. And so is it a terrible thing that our percepts sometimes fail us? And basically, the role I see in illusions is to illustrate what aspects of perception are inferences, but maybe they actually are also useful for navigating the world. So this illusion shows that we have a prior in our visual system, and the prior is to interpret everything as 3D, even if it's a 2D picture on the screen. And I call it a prior because the visual system does that for you whether or not you want it to happen. And the question is this a bad thing? And I think that this might not be a bad thing because it might be a thing that you're doing every single moment. Because in fact, the images that are hitting your eyes are always 2D. So you're always taking 2D pictures of the world, and yet the world is 3D. So we always have to interact with a 3D world. So that might be something that is evolutionarily useful. The purpose of the last illusion, which is an ambiguous image, is to really drive home the point that perception is an active process. Your percepts are not a copy of the world, but rather an inference of the visual and auditory and sensory input. So what we're going to try to do this quarter is actually understand how our perception works. And basically my view on this is that perceptions are evoked by the world, but they're a personal interpretation rather than a copy of the world. And they're constraints by two things. First of all, they're obviously constraints about the inputs that are coming from the world, as well as constraints by our nervous system apparatus. So we're going to learn a little bit more about the physical properties of our sensory inputs as well as our nervous systems in order for us to understand perception. On the other hand, our nervous system has evolved to accurately reflect several aspects of the world precisely in order for us to better navigate the world. So based on these insights, we'll strive to understand during the course some of the limits of our nervous system, and on the other hand, what aspects of our sensory system have evolved to reflect portions of the world accurately. And finally, we'll also think about what aspects of our perceptions are subjective and perhaps driven by our own personal experience. So I hope this demonstrations got you to start thinking about perception and get at least pique your interest in the class. And this is pretty much what I had in store for today in terms of like content topic. And what I'd like to do now is open the class to questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat and I'll give you a couple of minutes to put your questions and we'll answer them in turn.
we already have some questions. So the first one, Nathan asked, will our perceptions of the tables change if the image was rotated?
So Nathan, thanks for your question. I really like this because you could actually do this on your own and turn this around and see what happens. If you're just going to turn this image in like 90 degrees, it might change your perception, but it might not. And the reason that it might change the perspective is because the illusion uses like perspective cues, and these will get disrupted if you turn them around. And so if you're going to put the tables side by side, it might be a more veridical interpretation. So there are some art tricks here in generating the illusions. And you can go ahead and try this and see what happens.
And we have Benjamin. Would you mind to tell us about your questions?
Yeah, sure. My question just has to do with the different nature between the tables illusion and the rabbit and duck illusion. Specifically, the way that the rabbit and duck illusion, you're able to sort of flip your perception based on your understanding of the illusion and cognitive effort. But that's not the case for the tables illusion. And I know that like there's a pretty famous paper in perception of what the frog's eye tells the frog's brain that has a lot to do with the level or where in the visual stream you get specialization for specific visual elements. And, you know, the visual cortex isn't getting like a one-to-one representation of what you're seeing there, specific specializations. So I was wondering whether the difference in how cognitive effort impacts how you perceive these illusions, whether that indicates that there's a difference in terms of the regions faulted in these illusions, whether they're more upstream or more downstream, specifically thinking that the two tables illusion is more upstream and the rabbit and duck illusion more downstream.
Is upstream higher or lower in the hierarchy? I'm like not American, so this always confuses me.
It gets me a few times as well. So upstream being like closer to the primary visual cortex of V1.
Okay. Okay, so let me just parse this question for you all. So basically, I think you have two components to the question. So one, basically, if I understand your question, is that for the two illusions, one you can override with your consciousness, basically the duck-rabbit illusion, that you could say, okay, I'm going to look here, then I'm going to look, it's going to look like a rabbit, I'm going to look here, it's going to look like a duck, but you can't do that with a shepherd's table. It's always going to look like the left one is different. So one insight is that some illusions you can override consciously and other can't. And then the second part of your question, does that mean that it happens in different parts of the visual processing stream? Right? Yeah. So we haven't talked about visual processing streams yet, but you are going to learn about it in this month. So this is a good questions to have had and trigger some of the thoughts. I think this is really kind of raises a thing that's really central to the way we're going to run the class, is trying to link between behavior and the brain and really understand how our neural apparatus, whether it's in the peripheral sensory system or in the brain, really in what way it constrains our perception. I do think that one insight that you can gain is that if you have a prior, as in the case of the shepherd tables, that you're going to always interpret the scene as 3D, it's probably happening in a much lower level region in the processing stream because consciousness might not have access to it. But if you have these ambiguous illusions, and people have done this, when you have like inferences can be modulated by your attention, by your point of gaze, and by your experience. And these are probably what you would call upstream, or I would call higher level areas. So this is good that you're thinking about it. I really like this kind of engagement, and this is what we're trying to unpack throughout the quarter.
Okay, great, thanks.
We have two students ask similar kind of questions. So has the rabbit and duck study been compared based on cultural differences, especially the direction in which an individual is familiar with reading? And another student asked similar questions like how like speak languages may affect if you a language starts on the left or a language starts on the right. Would that affect the rabbit duck study?
So let me just bring back the rabbit duck illusion. So the short answer is that I don't know that anybody has done an organized study on this particular picture, but it is true that your experience with language does affect where you look at. And the reason that I know this is that we've actually looked at this in the lab by comparing children that are young children that don't read very well and children that are older and can read well, and where they look at words is very different. So your experience does affect your eye movements. So I would probably say your experience could be language. It could be somebody in my breakout room says maybe you have a lot of ducks in your environment, so you're going to more easily see a duck than a rabbit. It's definitely the case that where you're going to look is going to really impact this particular illusion. That's not always true about ambiguous illusion, but this is true about this particular one. So if you look on this side, if you see my cursor, you're more likely to see a rabbit. But if you look on this side, you're more likely to see a duck. So if your reading direction is from left to right, you might start by putting your eyes here. And if you read from right to left, you might start by putting your eyes here. A point about this illusion in particular is that I can flip your percept just by asking you to look here or here. So whatever experience or bias you might have, I can still have you flip your percepts.
Another question about the table activity. So will the two real world table images also show the same effect?
In the real world, they would.
If it's like real world table images, like 3D pictures, I guess.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to this question. I think so, right? Because this is the whole point of this illusion.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just say, this is 5:58. Our class is supposed to finish at 5:50. So anybody who would like to leave and take the day, that is going to be fine. I do have office hours right now, so if you want to stay and talk to me, I'm very happy. But for those of you who need to go on, you're welcome to go on and to move to your next activity. So I'm very excited to have you all in my class, and I'm going to stay on here, and you can just hang out and chat with me if I haven't answered your question yet.
Maybe we can answer one logistic question. So someone asked, what is the attendance policy regarding, say, another class having a timed midterm during one of these classes lectures?
Again, they have conflicting times. If you have conflicting times, you probably can't take both classes at the same time. So you have to choose which class you want to go to.
So that was my question, and it's specifically regarding like one exact midterm that I would be having, not an actual class. Because for whatever reason, my professor's only giving us 2 hours to do the midterm, and it conflicts with this course, and I really don't want to have to drop an entire course because of a midterm.
Okay, that's a different question. So for attendance, if you come to 90% of the classes, you're going to get full attendance. So if you're going to miss one class, you're going to be fine. And I did this because occasionally people were going to have conflicts or feel sick, or I don't know what's going to happen. So if you attend in 18 out of the 20 online classes, you're going to be fine.
Okay.
You're going to get full credit basically on your participation. Pamela, are there any more procedural questions?
There's one vision, like perception questions from the end of the class. So does the relativity of perception strength and philosophical argument regarding the problem of other minds? Oh, does the relativity activity of perception strengthen the philosophical argument regarding the problem of other minds? So this is a question from Claudia.
Claudia, could you elaborate a little bit because I'm not fully understanding your question?
Yeah, sure. So this is kind of more salient to the breakout room we were specifically in, because towards the end, I know you mentioned that this kind of caveat about things being a figment of our imagination, like specifically because like our senses are kind of like rooted, from what I understand, are kind of rooted in our nervous system, and like it all connects to the brain. So for all we know, we can be a brain in a vat. And so I was wondering, in terms of that, does that kind of strengthen the argument that we can't really prove the consciousness of others because the consciousness that we experience is the only consciousness we have access to? I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I'm kind of rambling, but I was kind of interested in your perspective of that.
It's a very deep question. I can give you my how do you call it, working hypothesis. I don't think that as a field we've resolved consciousness, so I cannot give you like the ultimate definite answer. I do think that consciousness is a really interesting question, and people have actually, in my field, used these ambiguous images, and that kind of relates to Benjamin's question earlier, to get access to consciousness, because basically these ambiguous images would be able to differentiate between what information you might have versus what information reaches your consciousness. So you will always have information in this example about both the rabbit and the duck, because information is actually not changing. It's exactly the same image, but it's your consciousness that can flip this percepts around. And consciousness is highly tied with attention and your awareness. So people use these kinds of illusion to probe consciousness, but it doesn't really answer your question. If I have exactly the same consciousness as you, this is a really big question that I really don't have right now the answer for you. But not only me, it's the whole field.
Oh, thank you.
And last questions in the chat. I think this one is basically asking about what's the mechanism of the rabbit and duck image. So like how, when you move from left and right, the image can change. So is it something happen at the lower level of features or higher level? I guess it's visual streams can modify the lower levels interpretation. This is question from Greenfin. If my explanation is not correct, feel free to add or yeah.
Griffin, do you want to add anything to Pam or what you wrote in the chat?
I think she mostly covered it. I was just asking, like, what exactly is the mechanism that causes you to like perceive these illusions differently? Like, is it that what you're seeing changes based on your interpretation of it, or is it like some other like higher level overlay conceptually that like changes your interpretation of it, but not the actual image that you're seeing?
So I'm going to answer from my research, and actually both Insub and Don are doing related research in my lab, so maybe they want to add to it. So people thought that, and we're going to talk about object recognition probably in a month, but people really thought that object recognition is very high level and cognitive and detached from the spatial content of visual processing. And we're going to talk about this concept of receptive field, which means where in the world does that part of the brain code information. And what we've learned in my lab and in other labs in the field, that even these high-level areas actually don't respond to the entire visual scene, but actually process only portions of the scene. So by moving your eyes, you're actually spatially processing different parts of the visual scene in the higher level visual areas, and this might be why your percept is flipping. So this kind of view that there's spatial processing and object processing, kind of my lab and other labs shows that this is probably not true at all. And I don't know, Don, if you wanted to add to this, or maybe, yeah.
Sorry, Griffin, what were you going to say? Go with your thought. And then
I was just going to clarify, like, so you're saying that you have like different parts of your visual field that are more likely to see a rabbit versus a duck, so it's like based on where the image hits your retina that you interpret it differently?
Mm-hmm. pretty much. So suppose you have, like, people thought maybe you have like a grandmother neuron. So this is a neuron that recognizes your grandmother. This is like a philosophical construct. So maybe you have a rabbit neuron and a duck neuron. Let's just hypothetically say that. It's probably not one neuron, it's a lot of neurons. And people really thought that there might be these concept neurons in the visual system that are very detached from space. But that's just not true. The neurons only will recognize a rabbit if it's in a certain part of space. So if you move the eyes to this part of space, whereas a rabbit neuron processes information, you'll see a rabbit. And if you move your eyes to the part of space that's a duck neuron, then you'll recognize it as a duck. I'm very simplifying it. It's not exactly the way I'm talking about, but your basic interpretation that's where and what are tied is basically the idea that I'd like to convey. Shocking, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty insane. That's not how I was thinking about it at all.
Yeah, I know. Science is interesting.
So to ask a follow-up question based on what you just said, like to what degree does that like neuronal specificity or lack thereof have to do with the idea of multiple selectivity?
This is probably true that neurons will have multiple selectivities. That's probably true. So basically a neuron could respond to what and where at the same time. So I think that falls in your bin of multiple selectivity.
Gotcha. Okay.
Isn't it fun what simple illusions can do to you? Have all these profound thoughts?
I was wondering, in this class, are we going to go into like, so the idea of like, if you have two different people perceiving something, like being able to prove that like what one person is seeing is comparable to someone else? Like, I think someone touched on it, like with the like idea of like brain in a vat or something like that. But like, are we going to go into that?
We're going to touch upon this. It's not going to be the main focus. I think we're going to talk about it. One of the places that we're definitely going to look at this is in the case of color perception, because this is a clear case where we could actually test that hypothesis if people perceive color in the same way or not. And understanding the neural mechanisms and also really what happens in the eye is very helpful for answering that question. So the idea that I'm going to try to convey to you is that if you understood something about the underlying mechanism, you're better equipped to test these questions experimentally and kind of develop answers to your questions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
I see that there are other people here that haven't asked questions, so I'm wondering if you guys have questions like Jackie or Jacqueline or Key or Disney or Nicholas or Ray. Yes, go for it.
I do have a small question that's not specifically related to today's class, but like this is my first kind of psychology versus neuroscience class I'm taking like as an undergrad. So I'm just wondering like if I'm really interested in still after this class, then is there any classes, advices you might want to give for future research or just other classes to take at Stanford?
There are a lot of classes both in psychology and symbolic system and home bio that look at other aspects of neuroscience. So psychology has some classes under the neuroscience track. There's cognitive neuroscience, there's learning and memory. There's a big class in home bio. I think it's biology. It's called brain and behavior. There's Rob Sapolsky's class. So if you want specific questions, shoot us an email and I can send you a long list. There's a really good set of classes. There are also high-level undergraduate classes. Justin Gardner teaches another class. Josh, do you remember Justin's class? Forgot the name of it. Maybe 151 or something.
Psych 50, cognitive neuroscience.
Yeah. So Justin teaches Psych 50, but he also has a higher level class. No? Do you remember the class name?
There's a brain decoding class, which is 164, but that's like a seminar class. I think that's it, yeah.
So yes, there are a lot of opportunities, and you could follow this track. There are a lot of options.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes, Jacqueline.
I have a really more like high level questions. Like, I think that it would be difficult to have you answer in like a short period of time. But I'm just wondering, like, to what extent do you see perception or there being a strong relationship between language and perception, and how people who speak different languages or those individuals who speak multiple languages might perceive the world differently from each other, or if that's even true, or like maybe they just perceive them the same way. I don't know.
This is a really good question, and this is actually an active research agenda for some scientists. There's a scientist, she used to be in our department, she's now at UCSD, her name is Lera Boroditsky, and she really looks at the effect of language and perception, but she's interested more broadly, not just language, culture in general, and perception. And there's some experiments that she did are really interesting. So she looked at cultures that don't have right and left, but have, like, say, north, south, east, and west. So she looked at how they perceive space. Different languages will have things going upstream or downstream in different ways. This is why I get confused. I know two languages, Hebrew and English, and it just doesn't match up. So I've went to many baseball games with my son, and I still ask my husband, is the bottom of the inning the end or the beginning of the inning? Because I can't tell. I think in the bottom of the inning is the end, but for me, bottom should be the beginning. Anyway, I get really confused about that. One experiment that's particularly nice that has been done by Lera Borodetsky is called the Russian blues. And basically, Russian has more names for blue colors than English. English, there's just blue. But Russian has a different name for light blue and blue. And basically, she showed that Russian people are better at distinguishing between shades of light blue and blue than people who are native English speakers. And so there's definitely a role of language and culture in perception. There's still a debate based on her study if it's just because they're better at assigning the categorical boundary because they're so trained on it because of language, or they're actually better perceiving the color. So people still argue about that. But there's clearly, these are just really clear examples from her work that there might be an interaction between your experience, your culture, your language, and how you go about and immediately perceive the world.
Would it ever be possible then to truly prove that to people who, like, since you said there's still like a debate between whether it's just the categorization or whether it's the actual perception of it, is that even ever possible to prove, or is it kind of just like in the air for now?
I think there are ways to use neuroscience methods to look at it more deeply, because behavior is based on so many factors, and there are all kinds of experimental tricks that you could constrain the exposure time, so you will limit the cognitive processing that you might want to use. You could do some things that put it at the stress level of perception and see what is like the minimal neural reaction that you can get. I think this is a solvable debate. Right now it's not solved, but doesn't mean that's never going to be solved.
Thank you so much.
You guys are asking really cool questions. I'm glad that I got you to start thinking about lots of things at once. Pam, have we missed anything in the chat? I think we've answered most of it.
Yes. We answer all of them.
So I think that if you have no more questions, then we're going to close it for the day. But if you want to stay here and just ask me some questions, I'm going to be still available for the next, let's say, 10 or so minutes. Stop.